What if we see an overworked animator get transported into one of her favorite movies of all time and not only live in that world that she has grown to enjoy, but also be next to the characters that she not only holds very dearly, but it's one of the biggest reasons as to why she was able to overcome some of the hardships that she had to deal with in her life. And that's exactly what we got with the most recent anime to come out of this winter season, this being called Zenshu. Now it's kind of ironic when you come to find out who is the studio that's behind this anime, this being none other than Mappa, who, if you have been watching anime for quite a while or you're part of the community, you will know that Studio Mappa doesn't really have the best reputation when it comes to what really goes behind the scenes in their studio. And that's because many stories have come out in which many former Mappa employees or people who are still working with Mappa have come out and said that the working conditions in Mappa aren't great, and not only are they not given sometimes enough time to work on a project, but sometimes they have so many deadlines and so many things that they have to finish in a certain time that this obviously causes a lot of tension, and this causes a decline in their mental state, but also having a lot of pressure. So given the studio's history and what was going to be the main focus in the story of Zenshu, let's just say that this got a lot of people talking and wanting to check this anime out. And after watching Zenshu myself, I can safely say that this is probably one of Mappa's best recent works, because it did show not only are they capable of making great original animes, but they also care about their project. They showed in this anime alone that while they did want to focus on the Isogai elements that it came with this anime, but also show us the reality when it comes to the life of an animator, because sometimes this job kind of sucks. In this anime, we follow the story of Natsuko, who is a talented animator, and due to her having a creative mind and due to her ambitions when it comes to making some of the best work out there, which has led to her rising to the ranks of an animator. And not only is she in charge of some projects, but she also has a lot of creative control, which is all good things to have. But at the same time, Natsuko really doesn't have the best personality at first when it comes to the anime. She's very prideful when it comes to her work, which is why most of the time she tends to do it all by herself and doesn't really want to get other people's feedback or help, because to her they don't have the same vision as her. And this is perfectly showcased when Natsuko is in charge of a movie that she has to make that involves romance, but due to her inexperience when it comes to romance, this project is taking longer than it should have, not only creating a bit of tension in the work environment, but also some employees not being confident that Natsuko is going to be able to pull this off. And things don't get better when Natsuko, after eating a food, gets food poisoning, but once she wakes up, she notices that she's not in reality anymore. She's not in her own world, but in fact a fictional world from a movie called A Tale of Perishing. And the reason why this is a big deal is because this is Natsuko's favorite movie. This is the movie that made her want to become an animator and be part of that industry. Even though there are some people who don't have this movie as their favorite, for Natsuko it was everything to her. This was her motivation. This is what sparked her interest to not just drawing, but creating media that will not only be entertaining to people, but just like her will also be something they will never forget and something that they will cherish for the rest of their lives. But despite being amazed at first, there's still something that Natsuko knows after watching this movie 1,000 times probably, and that is that this movie doesn't have a happy ending. The protagonist in the movie, who's known as Luke, who in this movie is the hero of the story, doesn't get a happy ending. He not only loses everything and everyone, but he decides at the end of it, after being filled with despair and sadness, to go to the dark side. And Natsuko knows this very well, so when she encounters Luke and his group, while she is happy and excited to see her favorite characters talking to her as if they have been real this whole time, she now has a goal in mind. This being to change some events that happen in the movie that will prevent the bad ending from happening, but most importantly, she wants Luke and the rest of the characters in this movie to have a happy ending and to have peaceful lives after they get rid of the huge threat that's in this movie. But obviously things aren't always going to go smoothly, as due to her not being part of this world and the characters of this movie not knowing where she came from or who she actually is, at first none of them are able to get along well or be in the same page sometimes. But as Natsuko starts to be part of Luke's group, who is considered the heroes who protect the innocents from the evil monsters that show up from time to time, and this this, of course, with Natsuko involved, and due to her having a power of her own to summon things when she draws something, they look unstoppable and they give a lot of people hope that everything is going to be fine, and even if there's danger up ahead, as long as they're able to have this group that can take care of it like it's nothing, then everything is going to be okay. And the more time Natsuko spends time with Luke and his group, the more they start to get comfortable with her. They view her as not only a friend but also part of the family, something that Natsuko is very grateful, as she's happy that the character that she would never have thought to be able to have a conversation with see her in a positive way. But things aren't always perfect, and we see this as the story continues. We see that Luke, despite the role as a hero, really takes a toll on him sometimes. Sometimes this is something that he wishes he didn't have to do, because really all he ever has wanted was to be able to have a normal life, who not only have to worry about being able to see another day, but to also have to constantly worry when is the next threat going to appear and how are they able to stop it without any casualties. A lot of Luke's comrades from time to time have noticed that sometimes Luke isn't entirely happy, even though sometimes he likes to pretend that everything's fine and he's perfectly okay. And knowing what we know about what Luke had to endure and what he had to witness, you can't really blame the guy for not wanting to be a hero anymore. Some comrades that used to be part of Luke's group were no longer here, as they not only sacrificed themselves to get rid of the threat, but also they died in the battlefield. And even though Luke is appreciated and still is able to have a good image to the people, there are still some people out there that whisper and don't say out loud that he should have done more. He should have done things more better, because had he had done those things, then maybe a lot more people would have been saved. And obviously with the constant pressure and always having to have great results, this takes a toll on Luke. And for a while, Luke wasn't able to see the beauty of life or the purpose to keep moving forward. That is, until Natsuko was involved, and that's where his life drastically changed. He started to smile more, he started to really appreciate life, but most importantly, his feelings for Natsuko started to increase rapidly. It wasn't just seeing her as just a friend or an ally, it was something more. It's like Luke wanted Natsuko to be by his side forever and become something even more bigger than what they have now. However, it's not like Luke is the only one that has problems in this story, as Natsuko, despite still being in the world that she enjoys and cares for deeply, in the back of her head she's still thinking about the other world, and that's because she contemplates whether it's still a good idea to even go back at all. She has everything right now in this world that the other world isn't able to offer, and that is peace and just letting her live her life like she wants to live, because in the real world she has so many responsibilities, so many things that people are expecting her to do, that sometimes it's just simply too much for her, and she can't guarantee that she's always going to create amazing results, because at the end of the day she is still human. She's not just somebody that can be perfect all the time. And the few moments that we see Natsuko not being in the new world that she is in, we get these moments in which we see Natsuko's life that led to her being who she is now. We see that at such an early age, Natsuko had a passion for drawing and creating things that get a lot of people's attentions, and see her as somebody that can do a lot of great things in her life. But despite all this, she's not able to experience things that a lot of people typically get to experience all throughout their lives. Something that's highlighted a lot in this anime is Natsuko not being able to experience what it's like to be in love. For a good portion of her life, this being mostly her youth, the only thing she was focused on and fixated was making her dream job of being an animator a reality, but in the process, this resulted in her not seeing the more bigger picture of life, and that is able to try out new things and create memories that can be useful as your life goes on. And this becomes even more true where, once again, due to Natsuko's lack of being able to experience love for the first time, is why she struggled so much when she was tasked with a movie that involved romance. It's a great message that even the little things that happen in your life, whether they're a big deal for you or not, can be important, and they could be served as a way to inspire yourself. And this is especially true when it comes to making art and using those experiences to create something special. And just like in the real world where Natsuko was struggling and having her own issues, it's happening once again in this new world that she is in, as the monsters start to adapt and their threats start to increase rapidly, Natsuko really starts to feel the immense pressure as she struggles to not only create new things to get rid of the threat, but the events that she was wanting to prevent all this time in the movie are starting to happen. Not only are the threats becoming much more dangerous, but a member of Luke's group, QJ, sacrifices himself to get rid of the monsters that appeared, and with many thinking that he died, this would heavily affect not just Luke but Natsuko as well, as the last thing Luke wanted was to see more of his comrades die right in his eyes. And for Natsuko, she feels like she failed and she let somebody die for nothing, as she could have done more to prevent that from happening. And this would only just be the beginning, as once again a new threat arrives, not only causing destruction to the town that they are all in, but this will become too much for both Luke and Natsuko to handle, as people start to turn on Natsuko, thinking that she is the one responsible for everything that is happening around them, and this causes some of them to want to kill her, thinking that that's the solution to the problem. And when it seems that Natsuko did in fact die, this obviously makes Luke go into a dark place, something that Natsuko has been trying so much to prevent, and that is from Luke having this downward spiral and him having the bad ending that's supposed to happen in the movie, since at this point Luke lost the person that was motivating him to keep going forward, being able to have a genuine smile, and the person that made him see the joy in life, now she was gone, and with that he sees no purpose in continuing the hero role. And it's not just him that's having these dark thoughts, but Natsuko as well, as she is in fact still alive, but it's obvious that she thinks that everything that's happened right now, it's all her fault. She was never good enough, everything that she did was all for nothing, and this really starts to cloud her judgment, as she believes that everything that she has done in her life to this point didn't matter because she still wasn't able to be the very best, thinking that all her accomplishments, all the work she did was never good enough. And I think this is a really great showcasing of what Natsuko was always thinking. These weren't just thoughts that came out of nowhere, these were thoughts that probably were lingering inside, but she wasn't able to express them so openly. But now when she's at her lowest, these things are now circulating in her mind once again, and now she believes that nothing she did really mattered, and that she herself had no value whatsoever. But thankfully later on, Natsuko will be able to open her eyes and think things more clearly, that she is still somebody that is important. She still has a lot of things to show, but most importantly, everything she did and everything that she tried to do was still meaningful. And whether she realized it or not, it wouldn't be until Luke's longtime friend Yunio would tell Natsuko that out of everyone out there, she is the only one that can help Luke in these desperate times. And just like how Luke in the real world, despite him being a fictional character, saved her in so many ways that she could have never imagined, now it was her turn to save Luke and give him the happy ending that he rightfully deserves, with the climax of Natsuko and the remaining members of the group having to now fight Luke after being corrupted and becoming a monster. And just when it seemed that things aren't going to end well, with everybody dying left and right, and the bad ending being the true ending after all, Natsuko is helped by none other than QJ, who as it turns out was revived and helping Natsuko out until the very end, which led to Natsuko being able to draw a version of Luke that was so powerful that he will be the one to defeat the corrupted Luke. And this will lead to the change of events happening, in which everyone not only is able to survive and be brought back, but now there's finally peace and everyone's able to have smiles in their face knowing that it's finally over. But there is a bit of bittersweet, as due to Natsuko being able to accomplish her goal of giving her favorite movie the happy ending that it deserves, she starts to fade away, meaning that she's going to go back to reality, but not before confessing her feelings for Luke and how she has loved him and will always love him for the rest of her life, and Luke promising to Natsuko that someday, no matter how long it takes, he'll go to her world. And with a new perspective in life, being able to love herself and not take everybody around her for granted, Natsuko starts to become a different person, which gives positive results, as due to her being able to experience love for the first time, she's able to create that movie with romance and make it a huge success, but now there's a better work environment and many of her colleagues start to not only respect her but appreciate her, and in return she starts to appreciate them as well and treats them like her family. And gone were the days where she didn't ask for any help or felt that she was the only one capable of creating big things. Now she's more relaxed, and now she doesn't have to do everything on her own, as she's able to trust others to helping her when she is in need of a helping hand. And that's how Zenshu is, not before showing us a glimpse of Luke seeming to be in the real world, as well as a few other characters from the movie also appearing as well, meaning that Luke was able to fulfill his promise of coming into the real world, leaving it open-ended, since we don't know what's to come now that the two of them are together once again. And overall, I think Zenshu is one of those must-watch animes if you still haven't watched it. It was able to show us the magical world of A Tale of Perishing that still made us care about the characters of that movie and what they were going through, but also it was able to highlight Natsuko's real life problems as well and her struggling life as an animator. But at the end of it all, she was able to learn that it didn't have to be that way. She didn't have to always have a difficult life, and just like she learned, there's a reason why she is where she's at now, and it's all thanks to a fictional character that helped her along her journey in life. And that's something that's very realistic, as a lot of people can relate, as they have someone or something that has helped them when they have been in their lowest point in life or are struggling to keep going forward with their lives. And sometimes it takes the world of fiction to be the reason or the driving factor to keep going with your life and seeing the positives in it and seeing that there's still a lot of great things to look forward to when it comes to the unpredictable that is life. And with that, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.